You are listening to the TV Obsessive podcast, brought to you by TVObsessive.com.
Okay, welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. We're here today for episode 150, which I guess is a bit of a milestone, Ryan.
Mm.
As always, I'm Cameron and Ryan, executive editor for TVObsessive.com, joined by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor to the site. How you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Yeah, 150 is actually looked this up just a minute ago. If you assume we average about an hour per podcast, you just listen to all these back to back, it would fill almost an entire week. Imagine that, listening to us for 1 week straight. That would be amazing, right?
Yeah, I don't know if that's recommended behavior. But I appreciate anyone listening. And if anyone wants to do it, I mean, I think most of our stuff holds up pretty well. Of course, we generally talk about news items and stuff in the beginning part, so that might feel dated. That could be interesting to go back to some of that stuff, I
Yeah, that's
suppose,
right.
in its own way. But then, in the latter part, we dig in on a sort of current show, and I think we do it in a way that should hold up. Today, we're going to talk about something very bad is going to happen on Netflix. Netflix tells me that it is like their number 3 rated show, so I guess people are watching this.
Yeah, I've seen everywhere. I mean, social media. I've seen commentary online. I've seen things on news programs about this show. It's interesting, the different dynamics and the different demographics that it's hitting for being we'll discuss a little bit of an off the wall oddball show.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get into the details in the latter part of the pod. Hopefully, people that watch it. It's April 8th today, and so we've talked a bit about what our plan will be moving forward. Apologies to regular listeners. Last week we didn't tell you what we were going to do this week. Um, we're going to dig in on Beef, which I just started watching. This is one of those shows that it seems like everyone has been telling me is really good and I should watch pretty much
Hmm.
since it came out. And so it kind of got on my list, but it ended up being on the long list where I never actually got around to watching Beef. So we're going to talk about season 1 next week, and then season 2 the following week, which comes out. I think our timing on that will be pretty good. It takes some
Yeah.
time to watch a whole season of TV anyway.
Yeah, these
Uh,
that's what we're talking about a Netflix show today. These things that drop all at once. It's it gives I think we had a little bit of cushion. People have time to catch up, watch a few episodes at least, and dive into that second season. So yeah, I think it's a good time to go into that over the next 2 weeks.
yeah, we're putting more on our plate. I kind of like the one episode a week thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily mind watching. What was it for this week? It was like 8 hours of TV or something like that in order to prepare to talk about something very bad is going to happen. What a long title, man. And like you abbreviated it in a DM, that doesn't look good either, right? Like no one's gonna go around and like, hey man, you've been watching SVBIGTHO, yeah, like, whatever.
Well,
Um,
I kept
anyway,
getting confused because apparently there's a popular book called Something Bad is Going to Happen about a young Australian woman and sort of a coming of age story. And I guess at the very beginning, before I even watched the show, I thought that this was a show made from that book, but very clearly not. So they had to add the very so as not to confuse people with the book.
oh, I see. Wow. Okay, yeah. No, you mentioned that I think last week a book, and I didn't look into that in the way that you did. But that's a good clarification. What else have you been watching this week, Ryan?
Well, we're at the halfway point as of last night. Daredevil Born Again, season 2. I should plan is to have something up tonight as a recap of that episode. We are fully in on the violence, on the blood, on the battles. Some of the political intrigue of the first couple episodes has made way for really just some action that has picked up in these last couple of episodes. So always enjoy the fight choreography that this show produces. I think there's some of that again, particularly in a diner scene in episode 4 that I enjoyed. So it's picking up pace. This here we are at the halfway point, and I think still a lot more to come in terms of characters and in terms of story as we round the corner into the back half. And again, this will lead directly into we got a short 7-second teaser of a May 12th special limited episode of The Punisher coming on May 12th. So we're pointing directly towards that now.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't watched last night's episode yet. I am watching Daredevil. I'll keep up with it. I'll get on top of this week's episode. Um, at least I'm gonna at least make it through this season. But I don't know. I'm already starting to feel some of those feelings that made me quit some of the stuff in the past. Um, and it's weird. Like I saw something this week. Apparently they're going to bring back. Oh, oops, names. The
The
Iron
defense,
Fist and the
yeah.
Luke Cage.
The defenders we know about Jessica Jones, but Luke Cage and Iron Fist were photographed in the clothes that would identify them as such recently on or near the set of this production. So yeah, it seems like they are coming back for better or for worse.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's cool. Here's what it is. Because I was watching all those Netflix shows, starting with Daredevil, The Punisher, do Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. I even watched Iron Fist. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it was good, but I watched all of it, or at least the whole first season, or whatever. And they were doing that whole thing to like gear up for the Defenders, you
Yeah,
know? And then they all came together. I watched the Defenders, and frankly, I was kind of disappointed by it. Like, I didn't think the
yeah.
Defenders series on Netflix was all that good. So I guess maybe I'm just kind of recalling that. So to see them apparently bring all those characters together again in Daredevil Born Again, it just like, I don't know, uh, hits on some worry within me that it's not going to be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I already thought that the defenders had to do too much to spread the time to the 4 or 5 different heroes as a part of the group. Now you're balancing that with a show where you have to give a lot of the oxygen to Kingpin and Daredevil. I mean, he takes up a lot of the time in terms of his stories and what he's doing. So yeah, we've spread pretty thin if they try to get all these people in there at once.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they do it well. So far so good. I think with Daredevil Born Again, again, I still need to watch last night's episode, but I do have a weird experience watching the show, but I think I talked about that on here last week or the week before with you a little bit. So I won't reiterate some of my. Did I mention it's sort of like I feel like I'm suspending disbelief in multiple directions. Did I make this remark to you?
I don't remember you saying
Um,
anything about this.
okay, all right. Maybe it's just something I posted on Blue Sky. I'm thinking of. Um, it's like, well, so okay. One, New York City is very safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like right now, it has been for a while, right? So then it's like okay, I have to suspend disbelief a little bit and almost like pretend it's old, gritty, more dangerous New York City or something. And it's like okay, well I could do that. But then it's you've got these resonances between Fisk and Trump. I think I have
Mm,
remarked on this to you before. I like
yeah.
Fisk better, and then the other direction of it is the resonances between the anti-vigilante task force and like ICE, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is
Yeah.
just kind of there on the surface. I really don't think I'm reading into anything that's not there. Um, but I have something of attention there as well because of my political leanings and the like tend to be pretty pro immigration, honestly. But with vigilantes, if I take a step back from watching a show like Daredevil, in the real world, like in principle, I think that vigilantism is wrong. So it's like I don't know. I just feel like when I watch a show, I'm being pulled in various directions, and anyway, but I'm doing my best to enjoy it.
Oh, what do we have in the news this week? Actually, quite a bit. What caught your attention the most here?
Um, let's see. I mean, maybe let's just run through some of these upcoming things. That'll be fairly quick, and then we might want to talk a little bit more about some of the other things, I guess.
Okay.
Um, you might not even know what I'm referring to. I'll take the lead. So I mean, a couple of things that are announced that are probably far out into the future, right?
Yeah.
Are that Netflix is going to do an adaptation of the Jonathan Franzen book, The Corrections,
Hmm.
starring Meryl Streep. Cord Jefferson is involved, which caught my eye from his involvement with Watchmen series.
Yes.
Um, there was a previous attempt to adapt The Corrections for HBO, I believe. Noam Baumbach was involved, and that got scrapped a while ago. Um, Thoughts on this, Ryan? You ever read Jonathan Franzen?
I've not read this book specifically, but this exact same thing I think piques my interest that 13 or 14 years ago, HBO reviewed a pilot that had Chris Cooper, Ewan McGregor, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Reese Fans, Greta Gerwig, all sorts of names with it.
Yeah.
Passed on it apparently for other things like True Detective. Um, but now here we are, a decade and a half later almost, and Meryl Streep is going to revisit this on Netflix. But yeah, I'm certainly familiar with this book and its popularity, but not something I've checked out before.
Yeah, it's funny. I've read a different Jonathan Franzen book. I think it's called
Mm,
Freedom or something like that. Um, so I have some familiarity. I trust good story and all of that. The Corrections is the one probably that's been lauded more over the years.
yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting to imagine like that there's this pilot out there with all those people in it that no one has, not no one, but the public has never seen. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
right.
you can almost imagine a decade from now going through some drawer and be like, "What's this?" But I think this one's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
From what I'm reading here, it seems that Netflix is saying we're going to do this. So probably down the line quite a bit, but potentially something to look forward to. Somewhat similarly, Apple TV is working on an adaptation of Bonfire of the Vanities. What do you think about that?
This is a
Have,
movie
have you read
I
that
remember.
book? Have you seen that film?
I've seen the film. I remember seeing this film a long time ago. I think this piece for that movie is failure or a flop or maybe even both. I remember the movie
The
not
famous
being,
flop. Yeah,
yeah, notorious feature film flop is how it refers to
yeah,
it in the 1990 movie. So yes, familiar with the story. I think after seeing that movie, I have not seen or thought of this story in 15, 20 years. So interesting that it's coming back, particularly after a film that did not perform well. But I think the subject matter here, particularly at this point in time, is just quite interesting. So maybe the right time to revisit it.
yeah. It's weird. Part of me in reading about this TV show idea started thinking maybe I should revisit that film. I
Mm,
know I saw the
yeah.
movie, and I think I'd forgotten that it was Brian De Palma. And I guess maybe his career is a mixed bag, but that was catching my eye. And then of course the cast and then there's this other part of my mind that goes, no, Cameron, it's a trap. It's like this is why you watch this movie in the first place because it's got a great cast and all of that. And like, this is not a very good movie. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it even has a cult following or anything, but there is some part of me that wants to revisit it and like see if I can become a cult fan of the Bonfire of the Vanities movie. It's like, um, but yeah, I mean, involved behind the scenes here, David E. Kelly. I don't know if you're familiar with that name. He's one of these
Oh
like
yeah.
big TV producer guys. I mean, if you go look at his credits, they're pages long. And Matt Reeves, who did the Batman.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Maybe, maybe it'll
Yeah,
be good.
like I said, I won't compare it, and I don't think I even could after all these years compare it to the film, but I do like the names attached to it. I do like that Apple TV is producing it. I do like the idea of revisiting, speaking of a dirty, gritty New York, 1980s Wall Street, and going back to this point in time. So yeah, I think I'm interest is peaked here.
Yeah, and I mean, and I would imagine they're going to like work on directly adapting the book, which the
Yeah,
book
yeah.
here is really acclaimed. Who it's slipping my mind now who wrote the book. I feel like I should mention it was like it wasn't Tom DeLillo. It was someone like that. I
The
have to look it
author
up.
of the book, yeah, I don't recall actually.
Tom Wolfe. Tom Wolfe.
Tom, okay.
Anyhow, I imagine they're directly adapting that. So, maybe it'll work out. Maybe it'll be good. The right reference point of comparison is probably not the film. one
Yeah.
way or the other. Also from Apple, and this is much sooner, we've hit on this before, also has a really good cast.
Hmm.
Javier Bardem, Amy Adams, and so on. Their Cape Fear TV show coming in June. There's a trailer. What do you think, Ryan? Did you watch the trailer? Are you
Yeah,
excited? Are you
this this
worried?
this trailer I thought looked quite good, but so I have a caveat here, which is Cape Fear. So this movie came out in 1991, so I think I was maybe 11 when this movie came out. This is for somehow, some way, I saw this movie at a very young age, like before I turned 13. So this is one of these first movies that I watched that made me realize movies are not just Batman and Lion King and things like that. That there are these really dark and disturbing stories. And so I think that movie with McNulty, Robert De Niro really left an imprint on me. And so I really hold it in high regard. I'm a huge fan of Javier Bardem, and so I'm going to give this a long leash. But I was pretty intrigued by the trailer after watching this.
Yeah, I mean, one never knows watching trailers for TV shows how well they're capturing the tone and things like
Yep.
that. If I have
Yep.
any worries, it might be along those sorts of lines, if that makes sense. It's two films actually, right? I don't know that I've actually seen both of them, but yeah, 1962 Gregory Peck, and then
Yes, that's the
1991,
original. Yes, correct. Yeah.
which is at the top of my mind. I've been talking a little bit with J. Paul Johnson, who runs our sister site Film Obsessive. Um, he might write on this for us, and I hope he does. I hope that works out. Um, he told me that he's taught, he's a professor guy,
Hmm.
film professor and stuff, right? He told me like he would teach both films, you know.
Ah,
So there's a chance we might get that kind of intimate, detailed knowledge in relation to this series, and I really hope so. You wrote previously on was it Scenes from a Marriage?
yes.
The articles on TV Obsessive about that, and yeah, J. Paul wrote on that, pulling on his knowledge of the films and so on. So hopefully he does with Cape Fear as well. And yeah, I'm probably going to watch it too. I mean,
Yeah.
if nothing else, with this cast, and we know we've got good source material. It's like the worry would simply be if they don't do a good job making it into a TV show somehow, which of course is possible because you have enough gripping story for a film. Do you have enough gripping story for whatever 8 hours or 10 hours of TV or however long it's going to be?
Yeah,
But
I will say the accents are giving me a little bit of cause of hesitation. There's some interesting accent work going on in this trailer. We'll have to see how that goes. But you're right also about the films. I think that almost would be some required homework to go and revisit those before watching the show, be able to do a comparison of all that.
yeah, I might have to think about that over the next month or two, almost 2 months. We have almost 2 months. 2 months is enough time to watch two movies. Um, Although I don't always know that that's the best plan in a certain way. Like, you remember when the Sexy Beast TV show came out? We talked about it on here a little bit.
Hmm.
I'm a fan of the
Hmm.
film. I rewatched the film like right before I watched the new series, which was like a prequel series. And I still think the film is great, but then I didn't think that the series was living up at all. And I probably
Oh
would have
yeah.
enjoyed the
Yeah.
series more if I hadn't rewatched the film so recently.
Oh, I can guarantee you that's what's going to happen with me. I'm going to rewatch the 1991 version. I'm going to remember that I think it's a masterpiece. I'm going to think that the show doesn't hold up. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly what yeah. There's almost like a better plan, practically speaking, for enjoyment in life is to actually watch the show and
Yeah.
enjoy it as much as possible, and then afterwards revisit the film, right? Because then we can enjoy the film. I'm sorry, we can enjoy the show as much as we can, right? And then say,
Right.
oh, well, now I'm going to rewatch the movie, and then the movie's probably still going to be better, right? Um, so then you retrospectively think, oh yeah, the show doesn't hold up to the movie, and you're right, but you still managed to enjoy the show. That's my
That's right.
retrospective
That's
thing.
right.
Um, Speaking of, well, I can't quite do that well enough. Brian Cox has been cast in Dexter Resurrection. So someone striking me that they just like went ahead and put what almost feels like a spoiler to me in the headline here of the character he's playing, because I was under the impression that there was something of a mystery about this, but I guess not. I actually haven't watched the first season yet. I probably will at some point. definitely seems like Dexter is playing the game of we're going to keep this thing going for money. For like that, I think that's the primary reason. But then we're going to bring in like big name actors to play,
Yeah.
the characters each season, which I guess they played that game going back to the original run a bit anyway. But I don't know. Thoughts here?
Yeah, I also saw something about, and this is one of those where I have to admit, I purposely did not open and read this. There's still a piece of me somewhere that is going to watch Dexter and didn't want to be, spoiled at all. I saw something about Uma Thurman returning in a role in the same show. So, without any of the context that you have, it does seem to me as yes. I mean, Brian Cox had a wonderful turn in Succession as a horrible character and a terrible person, and maybe this is a way for him to revisit sort of being someone who's very evil. But yeah, I have not opened this up yet, lest to spoil myself of some things I might find out later.
Yeah, I think it should work pretty well. Brian Cox is a really good actor, and you know, the idea of hey, let's cast good, well-known actors or whatever to play the serial killers on the show. Cool, yeah. And they said I was thinking right before he got on because they did this a bit in the original run. I feel like they maybe upped their game a little bit, right?
Mm.
Because in the original run, it was like, hey, it's Edward James Olmos, and now Brian Cox seems like a tier or two above Edward
Yes,
James Olmos.
yes.
Um, John Lithgow, but that might be the biggest one, biggest named guy in the original run, I think. But I was struggling to remember in the first couple of seasons. Like I think maybe in the first couple of seasons of the show, it wasn't quite like that. But then after it got into like season four at least, they're like, oh well, let's cast this sort of
Yeah.
relatively well-known person as the antagonist for the season. And I know in the first season of Dexter Resurrection, they had multiple people, right? And we hit on this
Mm.
before, right? They had Peter Dinklage and
Yes.
mentioned Uma Thurman and some others. So yeah, I should probably catch up on the Dexter at some point. Um, if you watch enough new stuff, do you forget that the original run ended so poorly? Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. Um, all right, let's see. We got a couple other things here. Which one do you want to do first? Late show or early show?
Yeah, what about Late Show and a not potential, an actual replacement for what will fill the Stephen Colbert time slot after he signs off the air on May 21st? We're going to get, I guess, back-to-back half-hour Byron Allen productions with his Comics Unleashed and Funny You Should Ask. I'm not terribly familiar with what these specific shows are, but I did find it interesting as I was reading into this that this is CBS selling him that airtime so he can
I
essentially
guess.
own and sell the advertising rights for this. And then basically just, I always thought that's what you do with infomercials, but I guess you can do it to actual programming now.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm not familiar with Byron Allen or this stuff. I mean, I guess he's been doing it for quite a while. It's called Comics Unleashed.
Hmm.
I read something though about how there's like a no politics rule or something.
Okay,
Um,
great.
it's like, oh, but are we unleashed if we can't joke about politics and current affairs? I guess I don't know. I mean, I have no interest in this at all. Honestly, right? I just believe I'm reading about it. I
No,
have absolutely no interest in this at all. But
no.
it's kind of interesting from a meta point of view, I guess, to think about why they're doing this. I mean, of course, you could speculate about there being sort of political reasons for them canceling Colbert, but there are also the economics, right? And
Yeah.
um, we've talked about this on here before, even before they canceled the Late Show, kind of speculating or wondering a bit about the future of late night television. So, is this the kind of direction that it goes? Maybe, but my read on that more is this is like late night dying, at least on CBS,
Yes.
right?
My
Um,
my 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 first thought was just bet the under on how long this lasts on the air for CBS. I mean, it's just I mean, this is just filling air at this time after the local news.
yeah, and I almost just imagine what that they just don't care, I mean, because I read that the Late Show has been the highest rated late night show, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're still not talking about super huge ratings
Right.
in terms of the raw numbers, right? And that's just across the board, the extent to which people are relying more on streaming or watching everything on demand. I mean, how many people are tuning into a television network and changing the channel and watching things at their slotted time? Still some, I'm sure.
Yep.
But
Yep.
unless it's a big sports event, that you mean if you compare the raw numbers now to the raw numbers like 30 years ago, it's night and day, right? So to what extent here are they simply saying, well, we're going to have something on, you know,
Yeah. Yes.
Comics Unleashed fine, you know what I mean? It's like we're not going to like play the national anthem and sign off for the night,
Right.
but yeah, it really just feels to me like they don't care a lot what it is, and then I don't fully understand if it's like he's paying for the airtime or
Yeah. Basically, it seems to me the economics are we don't want to finance or produce anything that we could come up with or anything that would, d dig deeper in our pockets to put on the air. So we will sell something in that airtime for what would be the equivalent or maybe slightly more of what the advertisers would give us to air during that time, depending on what we produce. So they don't have to do any work. They get the same amount of revenue. Just move forward with whatever fills the time.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll be funny. Apologies if I'm sounding too negative, but there are fans of Comics Unleashed out there. I literally have never seen it, so maybe it'll be fun. Um, our last news item is Savannah Guthrie returning to the Today Show. We haven't hit on this over the last month, 6 weeks, or whatever. I mean, of course, it's been like a whole kind of saga here. What do you want to say about this, Ryan?
Yeah, that's just that, the news of her mother disappearing and there being this whole FBI investigation has not really been TV news, so we've not touched on it. But certainly after 6 or 8 weeks, her returning in the midst of an ongoing investigation, it just was a real, it was a real, I mean, I'm certainly not a Today Show watcher, but just to catch, what happened here, quite the emotional moment with her, her colleagues there on the show, that this is something that she as as an entertainer, as a news reporter will have to continue to deal with as she is back on this show. So just hard to imagine having to go through all of this and obviously wish her family all the best as they go through this, but just quite the quite the scenario to have to try to sit down and lead 3 hours of a news program every morning when you have this ongoing.
Yeah, and it's a weird story. I mean, I guess I haven't followed it that closely. I'm sure others have followed it much more closely than I have. Um, but it's kind of a weird thing where the story seems to be that her mother was abducted.
Hmm.
But she's 84, in poor health, I've read, and so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
then just nothing. You know what I mean? Because at first you almost imagine like this would be a ransom situation or
Yeah.
something. So it's what's going on here, and I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess part of why I wanted to avoid talking about it is that I'm very tempted to start speculating in various directions, and that's probably in poor taste, right? As you said, thoughts with the family, and I don't know, like hopefully they get resolution at some point, right? Because I mean, at this point, she's been missing for what, 6 weeks?
Yeah, it certainly is approaching 2 months, and as you know, there were lots of false leads and false hopes with this investigation, but there's been no resolution at all. And not certainly our podcast to speculate on what's going to happen and what the case is about, but just that it she felt that going back to work was the best thing for her, and that go stepping back into that chair.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense to me that like, at some point, I guess you go back to work, and
Yeah,
um, it seems like everyone was really happy to have her back, and it was warm reception and warm and fuzzy, and all of that in terms of the programming you're seeing on television here with the return to the Today Show this past Monday. So, uh, yeah, again, only hope for the best in terms of the underlying case, but um, it's weird, like a weird and sad story, and you definitely just you kind of can't help but wonder, like, really, what happened here? You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um, So I'm
The,
sure
the
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 family
mystery,
feels that way
from
too.
the angle of eyeballs on this and people paying attention to it, that's been the thing. The mystery of just the unknown here has been the big story of, how does someone who's being has constant attention paid to them, is in poor health, can't get far away, just disappear. And so that's been this is a tabloid dream story, and there's just been a lot of attention paid to it.
Yeah. Hopefully, get some resolution. And yeah, again, I don't know what else to say about it. Thoughts with family, all of that, and so on. But I'm sure fans of the Today Show are happy to see her back. I never watched the Today Show. It's on far too early. I don't get up that early.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I was just
Doesn't
just till like 6 a.m. or something, right? Um, all right, so let's talk about something very bad is going to happen. Hopefully, people have checked this show out. If not, this is your spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the show in its entirety, of the season, its entirety, at least season one. We don't know if there will ever be any more of this or if it's a one-off season. We'll put a little bit of music in here and be back with you in just about 10 seconds.
Okay, we're back to talk about Something Very Bad is Going to Happen on Netflix. This series created by Haley Z. Boston, executive producers, the Duffer Brothers. Something Very Bad is Going to Happen centers on the upcoming wedding of Rachel Harkin and Nikki Cunningham and the unsettling things that happened to them in the week before their marriage. At the Cunninghams' remote family cabin, Rachel learns about a soulmate curse affecting her bloodline that's been passed down for some 200 years. According to the legend, every descendant must marry their true soulmate by sundown on their wedding day or face a gruesome, bloody death. Over the week, the tension builds as Rachel meets some of the disturbing members of Nikki's family as she uncovers the dark history of her own family. Nikki's brother Jules witnessed her mother's violent death and believes in the curse, but Nikki and her sister Portia remain skeptical and are just trying to make their mom happy after they learn about her incurable brain tumor. The finale culminates when Nikki backs out of the wedding and the sun sets without a completed ceremony. Because the wedding fails to happen on time, the curse is transferred to the Cunningham family, causing many of the family guests in attendance to bleed out of the party because they apparently aren't married to their soulmates. In an attempt to save his family, Nikki forces the vows, but Rachel, having lost her faith in their connection, is no longer his soulmate. She dies a bloody death, but the next morning is resurrected to be the new immortal witness. The series concludes with Rachel driving away in the original witness's truck, who is now cursed with the task of watching over future generations and warning them to be extremely careful about who they choose to love and marry in the future. I may have noted this before. I do love the some of these log lines that are created on some of these shows, and one of them I saw just had this sense of, this story centers around the struggles that Nikki or that Rachel and Nikki face on their path to their wedding. Struggles for a wedding, might be that the flowers don't show up on time or that your guest list is
Yeah,
late or something. This takes this to a whole new level, and now that I realize this is a pretty original story, um, I flew through this show pretty quickly and found it to be propulsive in terms of wanting to keep watching the next one and see what was going to happen and making my way to this wedding. So I sort of know if you felt the same way about that, how you felt about this original story.
yeah. To some degree, I did. The only thing that held me up in terms of the binging of it was the anxiety of it,
Hmm.
if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So, um, thinking back on my experience watching it, I kind of did um, feel propelled through, as you were saying, but at the same time, I closed Netflix after each episode, and then like 5 minutes later or something, decided, yeah, I guess I'll watch the next episode
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I wasn't like immediately letting it go, roll to the next episode, but rather doing this thing where I was like, okay, I'll do something else, and then deciding, nah, but nothing is as interesting to me. I'll go back to the show. So um, let's talk a little bit about that kind of vibe of it and start there, sort of very
Yeah.
generally. Um, I don't know. thinking back to like the first episode and so on, stuff, the rest stop and
Mm.
all of that, which I don't know is ultimately relevant to the plot so much, but um, I guess I'm curious, how did all of this land for you, Ryan? How would you describe it? And then I have some thoughts, so I'll answer the same question. But how would you
You
sort of
mean
describe your feeling of it?
describe feelings about the show in general, and how I felt sort of throughout it, or about the way it ended? What do you want me to dig in
I mean,
on?
like the kind of tone of the show, if that makes
Mm.
sense, the mood of it, because
I
it's like you can call it horror, but I don't know if that's the most precise way to get at it.
Yeah, I certainly don't know that I would classify it as horror. Maybe not until there are other aspects of that, certainly, but maybe not until you get to that final episode. You really sort of get a sense of the horror and the violence and some of the grotesque things that happen in this series. I did sort of feel, as you're describing that, the same sense of, boy, this is giving me a lot of anxiety. Maybe that's just a part of um, there is enough anxiety in having to plan and entertain a bunch of people and cater to the whims of all kinds of family members when you're thinking about a wedding, at least in my experience. And then to add on top of that, that you learn about this, sort of unavoidable supernatural curse that you have to do certain things. And then add on top of that, the type of characters, especially that Rachel is having to meet and deal with in this. And I did sort of find my anxiety levels, my blood pressure levels rising through each successive episode of this series.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess what I'm thinking about, because I agree with everything you just said, is the extent to which part of this has to do with how it's shot and the
Hmm.
sound and and really playing with a number of things that um honestly I'm almost tempted to say annoyed me, but I don't mean to
Mm.
sound too negative because I think it was very intentional, right? Like almost like that annoying little noise that's coming from outside that you can't do anything about, right? Well, actually, that's an example in the show, right? Where the guy's digging, she's like, "What's that noise?" There's all kinds of stuff like, and like that bathroom at that rest stop, which again, I don't think
Yes.
this really feeds into the plot too much, but oh my God, that was just like, um, just the experience of that bathroom was incredibly sort of anxiety provoking to me in that kind of sense of like we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
There's not a place to be for any time whatsoever, right? And of course, I'm not actually in the bathroom, but the show's kind of making me dwell there for longer than I wanted to, you know. And
Yes.
then it just gets worse. I don't know what's up with the fox in the toilet and all that
I almost equated
kind
it
of stuff.
to sense of, when you hear a piece of music and you start to experience some of the I think I have this right, some minor chord and or minor chords or discordant notes, just sort of those things that under the surface complement what's being played, but they don't sound quite like this, in keeping with the tone. It was like a lot of those throughout. We just kind of have this, oh, we got this story where it's a mystery headed towards a wedding, but you got all these little things that keep popping up, even in terms of visually, in terms of the just sort of the auditory experience of this show. There are a lot of those that just kept popping in and disorienting you from where you think it's going or where you think you're headed.
Yeah, and again, I think it was very intentional. Another example I have even is like when they're kissing,
Mm,
it's just like annoyingly loud, like just lip smacking all the time. And I don't know to what degree is this me, and to what degree is this like a universal experience in viewing it. But I think they were doing it on purpose, where it was kind of like everything, even the stuff that was a bit more mundane or should have been more at the level of romantic, even like when
yes,
Nikki and
yes.
Rachel are kissing, it was still just kind of like I'm getting kind of annoyed by the sound of their kissing. And I don't think that most TV shows and films like play that in the same sort of way. I don't know if that's
And
something you
maybe
noticed, but
that's part of it, the sense of when you watch a show or a movie or a story about a wedding or about people about to get married, there is a sense of there are certain things that you're going to see or certain notes that you're going to hit, sort of the happiness, the beauty, just sort of the joy leading up to it. And there is almost none of that. It is just this, just t taking the the marriage trope and any sort of piece of entertainment, throwing it on its head completely. And that's, I think, just further disorients you.
Well, but I think that you'll have to speak to this maybe more than I can because I'm not married and never have been married. Uh, so I haven't gone through the experience of,
Right.
prior to my own wedding. I just don't have the life experience. But to the extent that I can relate and I'm aware of the experience of
Hmm.
others, that there is something relatively common potentially about what we'll call cold feet, or like that kind of anxiety or doubt, or are you really sure that you want to go through with this, that kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
think that, I mean, this is almost the idea for this show is to take that and just like ramp it up to 11 and also make it supernatural.
Yeah. And it also plays a little bit on, at least just from my experience, the sense that everybody in a wedding week, everybody is doing their best to remain, positive. Everybody's trying to stay happy. Everybody's trying to just stay, on the bright side of things. Everybody sort of wants things done a certain way or wants their own way or wants to, provide their input. And not everybody can get their way every time. And they just, so there's always this sense of, well, I'm gonna stuff my needs or my thoughts down into so that other people can have the things that they want, or this family could do this, or they get that seat or whatever it is. And so there's always this unspoken air of, okay, I'm not getting exactly what I want out of this. On top of the nervousness, on top of the planning. Yeah. So it's just a weird play on this idea of something that's supposed to be so lovely and turning it into this very odd, literally cursed thing that they go through.
Yeah, again, the Curtis is taking it up to 11, as I was saying, if I can put it that way. The closest I've been in terms of my personal experience would be like as a member of a wedding party, best man kind of thing, right? Like, it's totally
Yeah.
different. But, like I've been in proximity, to weddings for sure. And, I think that this is what the show is playing with, and the curse is kind of an entry point into that of the question of certainty versus faith, or what have you,
Yes.
right? And part of what I think is kind of interesting about the curse as it's phrased is that you have to believe that the person is your soulmate, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't even really decide the question of whether soulmates are a real thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, but whether you believe that this person is, your soulmate, is the one true pairing, or what have you. And that Rachel as a character um, is not going to tend to do that. I'm not putting that in the best way. I'm just saying who she is overall in life is very
That's
kind
right.
of like
That's right.
um, anxious and uncertain and so on and so forth, right? But that the question isn't a matter of achieving some kind of certainty as if there's going to be proof. Um, it's like deciding to believe it, which she does,
Yes.
and then Nikki undermines it because he sucks.
Yeah. So
That's
that,
my
okay,
short read of the show.
this is maybe, I'm glad we're starting here because this is maybe my biggest question about the curse is, if is the curse takes effect if you allow yourself to get to the point where you believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that that person is your soulmate, then you are able to bypass the curse. Or whether you believe that or not, if that person is or isn't your soulmate, then that's when the curse happens. Like, how much agency do you have in making sure this thing doesn't happen?
Yeah, I mean, let's work this through because uh, I don't know if that at the end of the day it's going to feel completely consistent. And maybe that's not the point, right? You just like enjoy the show or whatever. But we're talking about it. I don't know. Did you hear the motorcycle that just went by? Apologies to
Yeah, I
everyone
did.
if
I
you're in
did.
motorcycles. Um, quite loud. Um, where was I? Yeah. No, to think through like how the curse works, right? Which is kind of the question that you're asking. I think you could just watch the show, enjoy the show, and not think about it a lot. But we're talking about it, so we got to think about it. We got to think it through. And um, I kind of think we'll be able to make it consistent, but I'm not entirely sure. So let's see how this goes. We're told
Hmm.
that the deal is you have to um, marry the person you believe to be your soulmate before sundown.
Yep.
Um, and you have to believe that they're your soulmate, or else you're going to, die the bloody death like Rachel's mother does. And if you don't get married, then the curse is going to pass to the family or the bloodline of the person you left at the altar, right? Something
Correct.
like that. Trying to recap how they put it. So what happens is, okay, first, actually, wait, sorry. I want to be sure to bring in here the whole scene where Rachel and Nellie go to the county clerk's office
Okay.
because they end up finding all of these files of members of Rachel's extended family, right? All kinds of people she doesn't know, going back into the past, and so on and so forth,
Hmm.
right? And they're laying them out on the floor, marriage certificates and death certificates, right? And it seemed like in every instance except for one, the
Hmm.
person died on their wedding day.
Correct. Yep. There was one person who lived 60 years or whatever after that.
Right. Aunt Ethel or whatever her name was. And so she's dead. But the easy explanation for that would be like, oh, well, she believed that it was her soulmate, right? But that's not exactly what we get because
Hmm.
the show has them doing a seance and it works. And she says this, something living, something dead, something stolen, something red thing,
Hmm.
which leads Rachel to make that brutal and disgusting potion that she ends up
Yep.
not drinking, right? But that raises the possibility that this relative did drink that, right? Um, and given that the show is basically telling us that the supernatural is real, the curse is real, like maybe that worked. Maybe it would have worked if Rachel had drunk the potion. We don't know for sure, right? So on the other hand, after Nikki at the last instance says, no, actually, let's not get married, because I'm a douchebag,
Right.
um, and undermines the whole thing. So when it starts spreading to his bloodline, right, um, then kind of like tricks Rachel into completing the ceremony. So it makes sense that she then dies, right? Because she doesn't
Hmm.
believe in this relationship at all anymore, right?
Right.
Whether or not it makes sense for her to resurrect as the witness, let's put that aside and come back to it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
What
We do have to talk about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, we do. But what I'm trying to work towards first, Nikki doesn't die.
Right.
Jules doesn't die. I actually kind of like that Jules didn't die. I thought that was sort of nice. And then does her father live too?
The
Um,
father we do not see die. The mother clearly dies.
yeah,
Portia clearly dies. The father, I do not believe we see him die.
yeah. Should double check that. Regardless, the way that I'm reading that, the only way I think we can read that is to say that Jules didn't die because he does believe Nellie is his soulmate.
That's exactly how I read that part. But I just cannot, I mean, not knowing exactly what happened to the father, and I'm just looking through a description now and does not say what happened to him. I'm still trying to square the idea of, okay, so then it just seemed like they really complicated the situation between Nikki and Rachel at the end. Okay, so
Yeah,
Rachel has the curse.
they did.
She is convinced that she is marrying her soulmate. Um, she's convinced she's marrying her soulmate after she decided not to drink the thing she put together with her chopped off toe and all that stuff. Um, and so she goes to the wedding believing that that's her soulmate. The wedding doesn't happen because Nikki sucks.
Yeah,
But so that's when the curse then leaps to the other family. but yet
Yeah.
after the sort of makeshift wedding that happens after sundown, it still counts, and that's why Rachel died because and she believed now that's not her soulmate. I guess it's just the kind of the complicated, but based on what they explained earlier in the season.
Yeah, you're right. The more I think about it, it's actually the fact that Rachel's dies that makes the least sense to me.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
Now, it's a supernatural curse. It's not actually real. Well, yeah, like, what do you want from a TV show? But yeah, I mean, it does seem like because they didn't get married before sundown, the curse transferred to the Cunningham family, right?
right.
Um, Nikki would be safe at that point because he hadn't even got married, right?
And it's at that
Um,
point, but isn't it at that point that she's supposed to then become the witness? Right then?
yeah, so I think, yeah, right. So I think that also makes sense for her to become the witness. We draw that line. They didn't get married, right? And so like it's over, and that
Right.
would imply that the rush with Nikki to say "I do" and put the ring on her finger
Yeah.
shouldn't matter. And I guess that's almost how we have to interpret it, but yet it does still matter, with the only effect being that Rachel dies.
Yes. Correct. Yeah, I guess I just
Because she did get married, but she didn't meet the criteria, right? So that's why she would die. And
so that's
I guess we don't know if the old man witness guy died and was resurrected, but I didn't
yeah, we don't know if he was I mean
like
he
that
clearly
prediction.
dies in the finale, but we don't know if he dies or resurrected. I just thought if you if you didn't get married by sundown, getting married after that is not going to retroactively do something. It shouldn't have retroactively caused her death. Shouldn't she have just become the witness at that point after she didn't get married by, and maybe she would have, but in something that marriage that happened late counted. I guess that's just the thing I'm confused by. That after sundown, a marriage counted. She died because it wasn't her soulmate. Um, so I don't know. Just I mean, maybe I'm getting caught up too much on this, but it just like there's one like sort of
Yeah.
small hiccup in the timeline.
No, I agree, but I think we've largely done the best we can with it, and I think when it comes down to it, you just have to accept it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and of course, the supernatural curse isn't real, so how much can we complain about it? Not being consistently logical or whatever. The I think the most important aspect of this, in terms of interpreting the show,
Yeah.
is how we want to interpret why Nikki doesn't die.
Yes.
Because I think there are two options, right? Option one is that Nikki doesn't die because when they didn't get married before sundown, they missed the deadline, and it
Yeah.
didn't matter. But given that Rachel does die because of their, consummating the wedding later, then that would suggest that Nikki doesn't die because he is actually so deluded he does still believe Rachel is a soulmate.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of tying myself in knots trying to think about all of this and who was the soulmate when and why and at what point was each person. Anyway, it did get me thinking a lot about this idea of um especially after so many people at the wedding start start to violently die, start to violently bleed. It's like, is this more of a commentary on that it's near impossible? One of Rachel's descendants made it through this curse. Is it next to impossible to find your soulmate? Is that the message we're trying to get across here? But Jules does, the father might, Nikki does. So yeah, it's just sort of what's the common thread here that ties all of this. It's a tough puzzle to put together, it seems like, and that's probably the point.
Yeah, I mean, look, my read on it is that soulmates aren't real. Um, and I guess in part I'm saying that as like my position as a person living in the real world, but I'm also making it as an interpretive claim about the story,
Yes.
right? So the curse is real, but unfortunately, soulmates aren't. And that makes the curse way worse,
I think that's
right?
right. Yeah.
Because the curse isn't you have to marry your soulmate or you're going to die. It's that you have to believe this person is your soulmate. So you have to somehow kind of somehow be the sort of person who does believe in that kind of metaphysical pairing that's
Yes.
occurring in marriage and view it that way. Whereas, so there isn't actually that level of it where there truly is a soulmate. So it's who you believe, right?
Hmm.
At the same time, though, like, this might sound cynical, but at a certain level, I kind of don't think it is because I might suggest that the whole question when it comes to love is precisely that. Do you believe in it? Do you have faith in
Yes.
it? Right?
Yep.
There's no objective proof of love at all, right?
Yeah.
Are we deciding, and then you could potentially think of marriage in this way, right? We are deciding together to have faith in this marriage, in this coupling, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
that's why I think there must be the answer to the curse question has to do something with your own agency, something with your own ability to say there's no cosmic or mystical or spiritual way to know if this person is actually my soulmate before we get married. However, I have, through my relationship with this person, through my love for this person, believe that that is the case and believe strongly enough that it's more powerful than this curse or anything that might curse us throughout our marriage. And so, yeah, I think it's sort of this commentary and this idea of there has to be something, a lot that we put in as opposed to just relying on some force that says this our person is our soulmate, so it's going to work.
yeah, yeah. And, it's not for nothing to think about the Cunningham family that we're introduced to. You know what I mean? Like, do you know people like this in real life? Do you have experienced people like this in real life? It's
Not
almost
not
in
to this
particular.
extent. Not to this extent.
It's almost in particular the like northeastern kind of rich but still liberal kind of vibe. Like you go to this house in Connecticut and you feel like you shouldn't touch anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but it's at the same time it's like why is there's taxidermy? That's a stuffed animal. Like that's taxidermy. You know what I mean? But like all of that kind of thing, I think they do a good job in terms of portraying.
That's that's
Uh,
that's interesting. Down here it's th- they are unbelievably rich, just unstoppably hospitable and nice and polite, but you know that behind your back they are, talking about about how awful you are and how they're, not good enough for this family. Like that's the
mhm.
Southern way to do it. To, just be so nice to your face.
Yeah, well, there's maybe some similarity there. Maybe some
Yeah,
similarity
yeah.
there. But it's definitely the kind of family where you can just feel the vibe from the beginning that there are rules,
Right, right.
right, that like apply to everything in terms of etiquette or what have you. And you're
Yeah,
supposed to just know what they are without even being told what they are.
yeah,
Like that
yeah.
whole. So I can relate to how Rachel feels as she's entering into that whole setting where it's just kind
Mm,
of like
yes.
I don't know how to kind of um, I don't know be in this space or what have you. So I guess part of what I was trying to get at is to what extent does it matter? The fact that like all these people die at the wedding. Um, to what extent is that a commentary on who these people are, as
Mm.
opposed to on the hopelessness of the soulmate idea? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I guess we're led to presume it was the people that died at the wedding outside of Nikki's immediate family are all his bloodline or the extended bloodline of that family. It's not the
Yeah.
spouses of that family necessarily. It's those that are directly in that bloodline. And it's just sort of see the overwhelming number of people who are affected by this because of some inability or not maybe not even inability, but a some sort of lack of effort or attempt to ensure that this is a person that they can be soulmates with when they are married. And so it's just, it seems like it's almost everybody at the wedding.
Yeah. Well, so, but maybe they got married more for like small p political reasons, or
Yep. Yep.
that sort of thing. Or we see the one couple where, the guy practically won't let his wife talk, and all that. Um, what was I going to ask you? Ah, man. Um, there was something I was just thinking to ask you. Um, looking at our notes. Some of the potion, I hit on that. I thought it was an interesting question of whether that would have worked. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, I
And
think the broad thing,
what was the book? It said this came from Portia's book. What was that book and why did Portia have it?
I don't know why Portia had the book, man. I think you see it in back in episode 2 or something. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like she has some book in her room that's called like um, satanic rituals and medicines or whatever. Like I forget exactly what it was called. I have to go back and look, but it's in those, you see it in those scenes where Rachel's looking for her dress,
Mm, mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
that whole dynamic when she's kind of thinking that these people are trying to kill her. And it's one thing that kind of stands out in the frame as kind of creepy, like Necronomicon book. What's going on with that? But I don't remember exactly what it was called. As to why she has it, yeah.
I don't
Um,
know.
well, I mean, I guess we're ultimately told basically that she likes to do the seance type of thing, but it's never worked before.
Yes, yes.
So, um, I don't know, just kind of an interest of hers or whatever, which I think maybe fits to some degree. In terms of the history of those things, there was a lot of this kind of stuff of kind of more well-to-do people having these sort of seance gatherings.
Yeah.
Um, but to some degree in the 19th century, I think they were just bored. Um,
What did you think about the I don't know what I necessarily call it a bait and switch, but for the first 3 or 4 episodes of this series, you think that this is going to be about something called the Sorry Man, that some character that's terrorizing this family and is going to show up and do something before this wedding or at this wedding. It turns out that the Sorry Man is just Rachel's father and something that
yeah,
that Jules witnessed as a child. It sort of seems like we're headed down this path. It's going to be some sort of demonic or supernatural force, but actually that's just a trauma from his childhood.
yeah, it was interesting how that came together. Um, I don't know. I wasn't loving that episode in some ways.
The flashback
It
episode.
works, yeah, the flashback episode, um, and the way it's all presented, like through a camcorder sort of found
Hmm.
footage kind of thing. I guess it's okay. I don't have a real complaint there. I thought it was sort of interesting actually how they tied it together to make the Sorry Man real, but not in the way that it was originally presented.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, I guess I don't have a ton more to say about that.
Yeah.
Did you have
Yeah.
thoughts about
I
the
thought
custard?
for that episode, and really, I think for a couple of things, I thought that the length of the finale probably could have been 2/3 what it was. There was a lot of conversation between Rachel and Nikki that just basically seemed like it was killing time to sundown. This is one of those where there's could have been some things just looking back on it now and watching the finale a couple of times that, yeah, I could have cleaned it up and maybe cut it a little bit. I don't have a big complaint about that though.
Yeah, maybe. Although I don't know. I mean, how did it land for you? Um, for me, it was weirdly there was like something like catharsis I felt when everyone started dying,
Hmm.
and interspersed with this, Nikki and Rachel yelling at each other, all of that kind of thing. It was, I don't know if catharsis is the right word, but maybe it is because we talked about all of the kind of anxiety throughout this show,
Hmm.
and at that point it breaks,
Yep.
right? And so it's a bloodbath. It's their marriage is they're not going to get married now. It's all falling. Their relationship's falling apart. That's what I want to say.
Right.
They're yelling at each other, but it's also kind of like we've broken through to we're living in the truth or something like that. You know what I mean? Did it feel that way for you, or was that? Yeah,
Yeah.
in part, I was seeing people dying, and I was like, yes, yes. That feels
And,
weird.
and maybe going back to a comment I had, I want to say a couple weeks ago when I first said I was watching this, that the whole series starts with this bloody, you see something bloody at the wedding or what looks like a wedding venue. And so the whole time I'm thinking, oh, well, something is going to happen to one of the family members. Like that was just my assumption. And then yeah, just sort of be blown away by, oh, something's happening to every family member at this. You sort of not
Yeah,
expecting that, which really I think did sort of scratch the itch of yeah, just what's about to happen here.
good. Yeah, no, this is what I wanted to ask you before, but I think you've already kind of answered the question of whether to what degree you saw that coming, because I really didn't, and
Hmm.
maybe I wasn't trying. I was just watching the show. If we'd been talking about it week to week, episode to episode or something, maybe that would have seeped out more in speculation. But they presented the witness says that it will spread to the other person's bloodline. And it's kind of interesting because I think Rachel presumes, and as a viewer, I presumed implicitly in that you really meant moving into the future,
Yes, not
right?
retroactively.
And I hadn't even really thought about it
Yeah.
until we approached, right before it happened, as we approached that, because we knew there was going to be blood all over the floor and all that. Then I started to figure it out, but it
Yeah.
worked well for me because I think we were supposed to be kind of presuming that they meant into the future and then realizing, no, they mean like everyone starting right now, no matter how long ago you got married,
Yeah,
they're
it,
dying.
it it did, and I didn't draw the connection necessarily, but it did make me go back and think. I immediately thought about episode 2 where they said, "Oh, it's 100 people, but it's okay. They're all family, right?" Oh, that's why we brought that up. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I don't know. Do we need to talk about Nikki further? I've said he sucks a couple of
Yeah,
times, but that was definitely my read. Like as everyone was dying, I was like, I thought it was his fault,
yeah.
basically.
It's his fault. Yeah, I got nothing more than he screwed this up. He was at the 1 yard line, fumbled it, and now his whole family's dead.
Yeah. I mean, and look, in fairness to him, I get not believing in a supernatural curse to the extent that
Yeah.
I, as a person, also would not. Um, I don't know that she ever laid out all the evidence for him that she gathered. That might have done something there. But I do think it's fair from her perspective when she says, the point is, he said he believed her,
Hmm.
right? And the structure of that. So she's like, well, I believed you when you said that you believed me. And now you're telling
Yeah.
me that I
Yeah.
wasn't comparing it to this catalog of all of our past or whatever, however she puts that.
Exactly.
Um, so I found that kind of cathartic as well, I guess, because it does seem when it comes down to it that Nikki was more in love with an idealized version of Rachel in his mind.
Yes.
And that's why it's kind of interesting that he doesn't die. And right, because like he does actually still believe that she was his soulmate, I guess.
Yes, he believed enough, or she actually was, and she had gotten to the point where she didn't drink the concoction because she was at the point where he was her soulmate. So everything would have been fine if he had just gone through with it on both sides, but he didn't, and now they're all dead.
Yeah. Well, we don't know everything would have been fine, but
Yeah.
we can choose to believe that. We can choose to believe that. Um, two little things you put on our sheet we haven't really talked about. One, um, I guess a more thematic one we want to be sure to talk about. What do you think in relation to this question you asked on our sheet, whether the series is pro or anti-marriage? We've kind of been poking around at that question, I guess, already.
Yeah, I think it's
What
just
are the thoughts there?
the I think the larger picture or larger answer for me is just it's pro doing things for the right reason. Or doing things because you believe in them and not just because of a convenience or not just because you think it will work out. But the idea of yes, putting yourself out there and really really pushing for something to happen if you believe that it is the right thing. I had the conversation with a mentor, someone that I really trusted, when I was thinking about whether I would marry the person I was dating, and they told me that they thought that there wasn't one soulmate out there for everybody, but you can make that person be that soulmate that you need if that's something you're willing to work for, and that's sort of where I landed on that.
Yeah. Well, I tend to agree. Yeah. And I think that then part of what, because I don't really think this series is either pro or anti.
Right.
I don't know if that's quite the right framing. Um, but it does bring some things into view. And like part of the issue with Nikki is that to this meaningful extent, he was going to get married just because he was supposed to, or you know, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when his idealized version of his parents' marriage gets a crack in it, then then he's unsure about the whole idea of getting married all of the sudden.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm still not sure how I feel about the fact that he doesn't die. And I know I keep mentioning that, but I guess he's just so deluded that he does think it is
Yeah,
he
that's
married
right.
his
That's
soulmate.
right.
Um, the stuff about the custard on her was creepy. I don't think he poisoned them.
No,
Um,
the more I think about it, I think about it in terms of the sorry man, where there were a lot of red herrings early on. There were a lot of, you're going to be sucked in this direction, but it didn't end up going that way. And there was, eventually the real point of this whole thing was uncovered.
yeah, I mean, I guess if anything, perhaps it is meant to kind of feed into the feeling that there is some kind of psychic
Hmm.
connection across time between Rachel and her mother, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Rachel colors the logo on a placemat or whatever, but she's saying she's never seen it, never been to Colby's or whatever.
Right.
Um, and there's some other stuff like that where it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
Um, and one thing I was thinking about is towards the beginning, they stop the rest stop and there's a baby in a car. And that's the whole thing that leads her to that dive bar
Hmm.
where she meets the witness. So was something arranged in the background there, sort of supernaturally, or was that just a weird coincidence, or what? I don't think we really have an answer to that kind of question.
Yeah. Or the witness has been around so long, he knows how to manipulate circumstances to make sure that, people end up in his way that are supposed to, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Nikki makes some comment about the guy whose baby it was being a caterer at their
Yeah.
rehearsal dinner or something. They don't really follow up on that. So like
No.
there's some way in which maybe it'd be possible the witness had arranged that whole thing, but it's still
Yeah.
kind of odd. It's kind of odd. And what's up with that bathroom? That's this is like we call the cops because of the state of that bathroom. Forget about the baby.
Exactly.
Got to be a health violation. I don't know. um. All right. I think that about does it on my end. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up here?
Just to the point of your question of, do we think this is the end? I did read one interview
Oh
with
yeah.
Haley Boston, who said that was part of the reason why they designed Rachel's ending to be open-ended, so that there is the potential for her to go and witness other things and be involved in other situations like this, and that she and the other people involved in this are open to it. So I guess, it's up to Netflix now.
Yeah, good. No, I did want to talk about this. Netflix sent me an email. Like after I finished watching the show, I got an email from Todo, or whatever. So I did read this, and part of it was about this question. The show was intended as a limited series, but they kind of have space, and there's some possibility that it might be kind of an anthology series if they want to make more of
Yeah.
it. And it's, so it's like, of course, the creators of the show
Yeah.
are up for that. It's like, sure, give me more work, yes, please. But
Exactly.
what exactly it might look like, I don't know. What do you think? Like, should there be more? Because I think that what would that be?
Yeah. I could be intrigued by, you know, I mean, if there's, I guess there would have to be more than one curse, or I guess you could have Rachel show up later in Jude's life, later on, and he's, found someone that he wants to marry. But if Rachel was sort of a traveling around witness to this curse that's sort of permeated all different places, I could be intrigued to check that out. Just something about the newness of this though, and the creativity of it would be lost because your sort of sense of, well, I've seen this story already. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're a showrunner working with Netflix, why would you ever kill off your main character? They're prone to renew you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would almost have to be something like what you were saying, to just do something like this, focused on a new upcoming wedding, where
Hmm.
Rachel is a side character as the witness. And that doesn't sound terribly intriguing.
Yeah,
But if you're going the other way and Rachel is the main character as the witness, what does that look like? Maybe
yeah,
that
yeah,
would work somehow and feel different enough. Um, or another idea, and maybe I'm reading between the lines here in terms of the remarks I saw, would be that it's an anthology series, and what connects each season is not a wedding or Rachel, but it says something very bad is going to happen.
yeah,
So it could be
yeah,
something like completely different and an entirely different kind of setup along the lines of the structure that at the end something very bad is going to happen.
yeah. I can see that. I can see that.
So we'll see. We'll see if they make more or not. I don't necessarily want them to. I mean, I think it feels like a complete
Yeah.
series as it stands, but if they do, we'll probably check it out. But all right, so thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. If so, please do leave us a good rating, review, all that good stuff. Check out TVObsessive.com. You can find written work on all sorts of TV shows, past and present. If you're on our YouTube channel, please do subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and so on. And our plan is to be back with you next week. And we're going to start talking about beef. Next week, we'll talk about season one. Then season two is going to come out, and we'll be back talking about season two. Um, and that's our plan here moving forward. So we'll see you next week.
All right. Looking forward to that. We'll see you next time.